This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing Anthony Polselli. Anthony is the president and founder of the Natural Networks Incorporated, a managed service provider located in San Diego, California, that provides 360-degree technology solutions for business, including phone, internet, computers, cloud, disaster recovery, and cabling. For over 25 years, Natural Networks has been in the San Diego premier technology solution for small to medium-sized businesses. Natural Network has a long-standing relationship with TDO and manages phone solutions for many endodontists offices nationwide. He prides his company on providing in-house reliable and quality technology business systems for his clients. In 2020, Anthony was nominated for the 2020 Top Tech Award and received the 2020 San Diego Small Business Excellence Award. As a winner of the Better Business Bureau Torch Award for Ethics in addition to all other distinguished awards over the past few years. Anthony, welcome.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and afternoon and evening, I guess, depending what time zone you're in. So today we're going to be talking about IT stuff. And let's advance to the next slide. There we go. So just a little bit about us. You know, we've been around 26 years now. We got 300 clients nationwide, grown every year. Me, myself, I've been doing IT for over 30 years. This next slide, we skipped a slide. Hold on. We're having a little technical difficulty, I guess, with the clicker.
Can you go to the third slide?
Yeah, would you please? So this is a little bit about what we do. These are the key areas. Managed IT, basically we take care of all the workstations, the servers, your tablets, your printers, all that stuff. Managed voice, we're a full telephone company doing all that good stuff. Internet, same thing. We provide internet access to our clients. Cloud services, cabling, disaster recovery, kind of that true one-stop shop, if you will. And this is kind of a brag slide. It's just some of the awards that we've won in the last 3 years. And today, so talk about cybersecurity and kind of how to keep you guys safe. First, why are you a target? A lot of people say, well, I'm just a small practice, I'm a small business. Why would I be a target? Because you have stuff that's valuable on the dark web. You have social security numbers, you have people's medical information. That's all worth money on the dark web. And even not on there, we'll be getting into ransomware. They'll encrypt your data and then charge you to get it back. So there's, everybody's a target. And it's not necessarily that they're picking one specific person. Most of the bad guys do more of a shotgun approach, if you will. Let's send my virus out there to as many people as possible and, you know, see how many people end up having to pay me. These are some of the common attacks, phishing, spear phishing. That's basically when you get an email that looks like it's from your boss and asking you to do something or getting you to click on something. It could be something like, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm real busy. Could you run out and grab me some Amazon gift cards and send me the numbers on the back and just put it on your expense form? So that's a common one. There's many variations of it, but that's an example of phishing. Ransomware, most of you probably heard about that. That's when you get a virus. That virus goes and encrypts all of your data, all your files, and then you have to pay the bad guys to get a password to get all your files back and unlock them. Now, if you've got a good backup, you can generally restore from that, but the bad guys have realized that, so now they're going after your backups also. In addition, they're taking it another step further, and some of them are getting a copy of your data and uploading it to their servers in the cloud before they encrypt your stuff. The idea being is maybe you can restore from backup, but they'll still threaten and say, hey, that's great you restored from backup, but we have a copy of your data, and if you don't pay us, we're going to release it to the internet. Compromised websites. That's, a website you go to and it could be a legit website, but they got hacked. So there's been some big name companies where you go to their site and just, a virus comes down because of it. Deep fakes, those are kind of new, probably the past 3 years or so. Deep fakes is basically where they're taking a picture of you, superimposing it and photoshopping it in to some scene that, may not be the most pleasant, something compromising. And then they blackmail you. Now, this is not something generally where they're taking a lot of time and effort to take one picture of you and put it into something else. The bad guys have got a lot of technology. They use artificial intelligence for this. And so they can do this in mass. Remote desktop. Remote desktop is a cool technology. It's something that's built in with Windows, free from Microsoft. It allows you basically from anywhere in the world to remote into your work computer. And it's just like you're in the office. You can get into TDO, you can get into QuickBooks. You can basically do about anything that is as if you were in the office. But if it's not set up right, then yes, you can get into it, but so can the bad guys. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to keep that safe. The simple thing is a VPN tunnel. But a lot of people think, say ransomware and deepfakes, oh, this sounds like complicated stuff. It's not. A lot of this hacking has gotten easier and easier because ransomware is a $1 billion industry. A lot of companies have spun up to help people make and distribute ransomware. Same with deepfakes. So now there are services out there that you can pay a subscription fee to. They will create the ransomware for you or create the deepfakes for you, give it back to you, and you just have to distribute it. So it's becoming easier and easier for the bad guys to do their stuff. Got some pictures up here, and I've got a few little examples of things I brought in. These are all tools that can be used for good or bad. This particular one here is called a rubber ducky, kind of a fun name. But when I plug it into the computer thinks it's actually a keyboard, not a flash drive. And whatever I've scripted in here, it'll start typing. So I could put some commands on here, which is really easy to do. That basically says when it's plugged into the computer, go look for these kind of files and copy them up to my cloud and gets me your data. Something like this, it's called a LAN turtle. I plug it into your network and then it phones home and I've got a tunnel into your network. I have a connection into your network and it's just like I've got a computer in your office that I own. All of these kind of things, these are all under $100 each. Cheap, and you can buy them online. This website I've got up here, Shodan, let's go ahead and bring that up if we can. So we're talking about remote desktop, and it's this great tool that, from anywhere you can remote into your work computer and do stuff. So there's this website. Let's go and just type in remote desktop in the search bar, please. And what this website does is it scours the internet to look for things that are open and exposed, webcams as an example, or remote desktop sessions. So we're just going to search for remote desktop and see what results we get back. And this goes all over the world, by the way. So we can see there's a Windows 2008 server there in the United States that's wide open to the internet. Let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. There's what looks like a Windows 10 box. Keep going. There's another one in China, and the username is administrator. That's a gimme on most, right? Go ahead and keep scrolling. There's some more. There's another username. Some of these too, they'll show you 5 or 6 different usernames depending how the hardware's been set up. So it's not like this stuff is complicated to go find a computer with remote desktop. There's a list of them all across the internet, and all you got to do then is start guessing passwords. And there's tools for that too. And there's actual libraries where here's a list of the most common passwords. Let's go ahead and switch back to the slides, please. So, and all these tools are available to hackers, and hackers can even automate their stuff so that they can automate it, right? Make it a lot easier on them. Work from home users, we'll talk about that in a sec. They're just another target now. Next slide. Let's see. There we go. Go back, skipped ahead a little bit. There we go. Can you, advance one slide? There you go. All right. So work from home, by the way, everybody's had to do that now because of COVID-19, and the bad guys know that's an easier target. Those home computers, they're probably not managed by your IT company. They rarely are. You probably don't keep them up to date as much with the Windows updates. Probably doesn't have good antivirus on there. Any number of other security holes, right? So they're an easy target. And if I can get a hold of the work computer, your home computer, and compromise that, from there I can go through what probably a VPN tunnel that corporate set up for you, your IT person, and then get into all your work computers. So for the home computers, what we generally recommend is either, for right now, don't use a home computer for work, A. B, if you are, make sure your IT guy's gone over it and it's fully up to date with all the security updates, antivirus, everything, and that it's clean, right? Or there's a couple of tools out there you can use, like a log me in, go to my PC, team viewer, so that you could remote in and take control of your work computer and less chance of anything going across the VPN tunnel. So what are some ways that you can keep your practice safe? First, easy one, passwords. Everybody's heard about that for a long time. Have good passwords. So what's a good password? Bare minimum, and these are minimums, 8 characters long, some combination of uppercase, lowercase, number, and symbol, and not like love or password 1 or anything like that. There's a list of like the most common passwords out there. Some experts will tell you that it should be a phrase like the brown dog jumped over the fence, something like that. Because longer is better. It's harder for the programs that hackers use to crack longer passwords. The other thing is that you should have a different password for every website you use. So, and these days we've got hundreds of them, right? So you'll have one password for your banking website. You have a different password for Facebook. You'll have a different password for your email, a different password for this, different password for that. So that's good. I get it's complicated. It's a pain to manage. I got a trick for you in a sec on that. But the good part there is when one of those gets compromised, you don't have to go change every password. And because by the time you probably find out that your email password was attacked and compromised, the bad guys have already taken your email account and that password that they got and tried it on thousands of websites across the internet to see what else they can get into before you even realize that it's happened. So in order, then what do you do to, hey, I've got all these different passwords, put them in a Word doc or an Excel file? No. Use a password manager. There's quite a few out there. Ourselves, we use one called LastPass. There's RoboForm, which is another good one, and there's others. But what a password manager will do is it's kind of like a list of all your bookmarks or all your favorites, and it keeps the usernames and the passwords in there. So that way you can easily have a different password for every website you go to. And then on the password manager, you just have to remember one password, and that's it. Now with password managers, you should also enable something called two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is where you have a username, you have a password, and then you also have a 6-digit code that changes every 30 seconds. So there's apps for your cell phone. There's free ones like the Microsoft Authenticator, the Google Authenticator, and it will tell you what that 6-digit number is. And so that way, even if somebody gets your password, they're looking over your shoulder and they see it, they don't have that 6-digit code that randomly changes every 30 seconds, and it keeps your stuff safe. Have a good firewall in your practice. We've worked with a lot of endos. can't tell you the number of times that we have seen like a Linksys, a Netgear, or just whatever their internet provider gives them. Those are not firewalls. A true business firewall will do things such as intrusion detection and prevention. It's fancy terms for saying it's looking at what's really going on across the internet and looking for bad stuff and stopping it. It has geo-IP fencing, another tech term. That's basically a way of saying, look, block any traffic that's going to or from Russia, to or from China. You know, I don't go to websites in Russia, so there's no reason any of my computers should be talking to Russia. Can we get the slide back up, please? Antivirus, that goes without saying. Don't go for the free stuff. You know, it's technology is very much you get what you pay for. Get good antivirus software, and pretty much all of your MSPs these days automatically include that in all their packages so that they cover the cost of antivirus, so that way they know that you're getting good stuff. Patching, that one should be like listed 3 times. Patching is really important. That's getting all the security updates for Windows, for Chrome, applications you use, and keeping those current. Microsoft at a minimum releases patches once a month at a minimum, and it's called Patch Tuesday. So, but there's ones that do come out in between at times, so it's important that this get done routinely. For us, we actually check for new patches every day and implement them pretty much as soon as they come available. At a bare minimum, patches are rolling out weekly. This is one of those things that becomes kind of a tedious task to do. So let your IT company handle it. That's what they should be good at, one of the things. And they have technology where they can automate this and monitor it for all their clients. So they can make sure that the good patches go out and the bad ones get stopped. Example, every so often Microsoft will release an update and it'll break more things than it fixes. So we can go in, as an example, recently Microsoft released an update for Windows 10 to kind of a new version of Windows 10. And it actually causes some computers by one particular manufacturer to blue screen and just lock up. So we get alerted to that and we can go block that update to make sure none of our clients are affected. And that's what, you know, good IT companies should be doing for you. Backups, everybody knows backups are important. They're basically your kind of get out of jail card when something happens. It could be anything from, you know, oops, I deleted a file, to some natural disaster, tornado, fire. It could be theft, right? So on backups, the rule of thumb is 3-2-1. 3 copies of your data, 2 different devices, and 1 in the cloud. The logic being, all right, I can have a full backup in my office. So if something bad happens in my office, my server blows up, right? We can do a full restore from there, and we don't have to wait for it to come down from the cloud because that'll take a long time. Then a copy in the cloud, so that if there's a fire, theft, some kind of natural disaster, whatever it might be, or ransomware, you can restore from the cloud and get all your data back. Proactive monitoring remediation, this is something your IT company should be doing. This is one of those where you keep the IT company keeps an eye on everything 24/7, and when something happens, they fix it, hopefully before you know about it. Now, there's always gonna be stuff that comes up where, hey, my computer's doing something weird, or this just locked up. So no IT company will ever be able to, you know, find in advance 100% of the issues and fix them before you know about it. But they should be able to see things like, oh, this hard drive's getting full, or this service stopped, and be able to go in and address that before it affects you guys. Next slide, please. Being careful with email. Teach your people, when they get an email, if they have suspicions, ask. You know, you can run it through your IT company and say, hey, I got this, I'm not sure if it's legit, what do you think? An easy tip too is just look at who is it really from. So, you know, it'll show a name up there, but then it'll pretty much always show in parentheses the full email address of who it really came from. Real world example, we had a client, it's about a 200 employee company. An email went to HR and it looked like it was coming from one of the owners. And it said, hey, I'm working on a project. I need a copy of everybody's W-2 real quick. Could you please send it over to me? HR looked at it. She thought it was coming from the owner. She sent a copy of everybody's W-2. The bad guy replied back, hey, thanks for doing that so quick. I really appreciate it. One more thing, I need a wire transfer of this amount of money to this account number. She looked at it and said, well, wait, I don't do accounting. Let me forward that to the accounting department. Luckily, the accounting department caught it, that it wasn't really the owner. But by that point, all those W-2s for all those employees were already out. And this stuff happens all the time. So just take a couple seconds, look at who it's really from, right? And if you have any suspicions, check with your IT company. Wi-Fi. If you have any kind of Wi-Fi that you give out to your patients, that needs to be firewalled off to a separate guest Wi-Fi. There is some stuff like, your Linksys that will do a guest Wi-Fi, but they don't quite do it right. Not to per se HIP standards, where they're actually firewalled off. And so ultimately your best practice there is you want to have a guest Wi-Fi, a corporate or internal Wi-Fi, and that corporate one, the only stuff that should be connected to it is laptops and maybe tablets used for check-in. Really, it's only stuff that needs to access things on the server or print, and that's about it. Even your own cell phones, being employees of the practice or the doctor's cell phone, those should all be on the guest Wi-Fi. Real world example, client of ours, the owner got a virus on his cell phone, and because his cell phone was on the guest Wi-Fi, it didn't spread to anything internally or mess up anything internally. Keeping things current, hardware and software. Software-wise, we talked about patching. That's generally speaking to get all the security updates that have come out, fixing all those bugs. But it's also good just to keep the software fairly current with whatever the latest version is, or at least 1 to 2 revisions at most behind. Hardware, a good desktop these days will come with a 3-year warranty from the manufacturer, but they'll last 4, maybe 5 years. Servers, about the same, 4 to 5 years. And it's not so much that they're just going to stop working one day, but when they get older like that, you have a greater risk of them just dying one day, and they tend to run slower and slower because as these security updates come out, right, it's increasing the size of the operating system, and which requires faster hardware, more memory. And so those computers start running slower basically, which means you take a productivity hit of how much work your team can actually get done in a day. Dark web monitoring. So the dark web, there's a lot of people have heard that term before, maybe not sure what it is, right? It's basically like the underground or like back alley type stuff. About anything you want to buy that is illegal, you can get it there. There's even stuff you can buy that's not illegal that you can get on the dark web. Laundry detergent. Odd one, but you can actually buy laundry detergent on the dark web because evidently it's one of the singly most expensive items to purchase that everybody needs. So people will go steal it and then sell it on the dark web. Well, dark web also is a great place to sell passwords, right? These accounts got compromised. I'm going to sell these passwords on the dark web. There are programs out there and services to help you monitor the dark web and see if any of your passwords show up there. Because again, while companies are supposed to report this, it's a matter of how long do they have to report it before bad guys have already gotten use out of it and gotten into other accounts of yours. So by monitoring the dark web proactively, then as soon as one of your passwords gets compromised, you can know right away and take action to change it. Cybersecurity training. Your people are your first line of defense. Most of the bad stuff that happens is trying to trick people into doing something. So you should train your people. You're all doing training today, right? Taking time out of your day for training to improve your skills. Cybersecurity is no different. But cybersecurity is not a big training thing that you got to do. It's not like some crazy intensive class you got to take. There's lots of different programs. We have one ourselves where it's an initial training video of about 45 minutes, and then once a week, a 2-minute video. So that's it. Once a week, 2 minutes, right? You spend more time looking at videos on Facebook than that. And then you know what the latest scams are. If you know what the latest scam is, then you're less likely to become a victim. And if you're less likely to become a victim, the practice is less likely to become a victim. So it's an easy thing to do. Like I said, our particular program is just a small 2-minute video once a week that tells you what the latest scam is. You know, some of it is, hey, you might see a USB stick laying on the ground somewhere as you're walking around. Don't pick it up and plug it into a computer to see what's on it. Yes, you're curious, but don't do that. Insurance, cybersecurity insurance, that's something new also. Talk to your agent about this, but it's one of those things that you get and you hope you never have to use, but everybody should have. It will cover things like ransomware as an example, the legal and the forensics aspects to dealing with ransomware, notifications that you might have to do if you do become a victim and having to notify patients, right? So it'll help cover all those costs. And that stuff can get really expensive. There's, ransomware cases literally where they might charge you 10 grand to get your data back. They might charge you in the millions of dollars. So they will look at your data and they will try to put a value on it and then negotiate with you and see how much they can get out of you, basically. Next slide, please. And if anybody has questions along the way, please don't hesitate, throw them out there. VoIP, I know we've been talking about IT and cybersecurity, but this is part of your network now. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and go over it because we've had a lot of questions about this before. So some of the things for VoIP. Well, first thing is most of you, whether you realize it or not, you're probably already doing VoIP. If you use Cox or Spectrum or any of those cable providers that provide telephone also, Comcast, you're doing VoIP already and you just don't know it. Setting up VoIP, you only need one network. You don't need two. Some IT companies will tell you, you got to double up on everything. You need another internet connection, another switch. You need to run all these other wires. That's not the case at all. Generally, if they're telling you to do that, it's because they aren't comfortable with the technology and they don't want to take a risk of, that finger pointing where something's going wrong. They want to be able to say, oh, well, that's a telephone network. That's not us. And even then you really never need two networks, two physically separate networks. Once you get over about 50 phones, then you'll VLAN off to another subnet. That's a kind of a technical thing. Most of you won't have to worry about that. And that's 50 phones at one location, not cumulative among multiple offices that you might have. Internet speed. You got to have a fast download. Basically fast enough to handle whatever you're doing plus voice. So if you have TVs and your operatories and you're streaming Netflix and YouTube, then you need to do a little bit of math there and figure out, okay, well, we've got this many TVs and this is how much we're streaming. So this is how fast of an internet connection we need to have. QoS on the upload, that's basically quality of service. It's a fancy way to say, look, I'm at my computer uploading these x-rays to the TDO forums because I need some input, and somebody else is on a phone, right? Make sure the phone call goes first. Make sure the phone call has priority, so that way it's not cutting out or bad call quality. That kind of stuff, you need a business class firewall to do that. Support, direct support. So A lot of IT companies, they really just resell somebody else's stuff like Ring Central, Advantage, or they white label it. That's, where I can go to somebody else, they do the phone stuff, and I just call it my own. You can go to anybody these days and get telephone service, but same with IT, you can go to anybody and get IT, but it's when you need help, right? That's where a big difference comes in. Can they respond? Can they help you? Do they know what they're doing? Or is this something where they're just like, okay, hold on a minute, and they go call somebody else? So something to keep in mind there. Also, they should have a strong background in not just voice, but networking, because the phones run on the network now. So most IT guys, they're pretty strong with workstations and servers, but not necessarily the network level. In our world, you can kind of draw an analogy and say, look, the IT guys, those are like the general dentists. They can do all the workstations, they can do the servers, they're fine with all that stuff. But when you get into things like security, networking, and VoIP, those are specialty areas. So like us, we have a team that just does nothing but the voice and the networking. That's it. So it's something you really got to have a strong background on and know a lot about. Otherwise, people will have a bad experience. Next slide, please. Okay. So when you're looking at IT companies, evaluating them, right, what are some of the things that you ought to look for? What should they be doing? What should your IT company be doing for you? Well, pretty much everything we've already just talked about. So all those past slides, and I believe you guys can request copies of the slides if you want, and those can get sent out. But all that stuff, the backups, the antivirus, the patching, the business class firewall, all of that. Little tip too on backups, if you ever want to test your IT company, right, what you can do is go create some, bogus Word or Excel file, put something in there, delete, save it, wait a couple days, delete it, and then go to your IT company and say, hey, I accidentally deleted this file. Can you restore it for me? And that's something that you can do just to make sure your backups are working okay. More than a one-person shop. There's a lot of one-man IT shops out there, 1-2 man. Everybody talks about, well, what if they go on vacation? What if they get sick? Then how are you going to get help when you break down and your server goes down? But more likely situations is something happens at 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night and your server goes down. Are they going to know about it, and are they going to be able to respond to it? Generally speaking, you need a larger shop where there's multiple people in order to handle that, for that 24/7 monitoring, because that's something else that a good IT company should be doing for you. Is they should be keeping an eye on all your IT 24/7, 365, and when something happens, they should be addressing it. So that way, if your server does go down at 8 o'clock on a Friday, they're aware of it and they can start working to fix it, right? You don't want to come in Monday morning and go, hey, nothing works, and be trying to get a hold of your IT company. Or worse yet, you get an emergency call and you got to go in to help a patient Saturday and find out nothing works. You can't open TDO, no x-rays, and can't even take an x-ray, right? Because your server's down. So a good IT company should be monitoring things 24/7 and fixing issues. That doesn't mean they should be on site all the time. That should be rare that they go on site. That going on site, it should be because you're getting a new computer. Generally, that's about it. Like us, we do about 95% of our support remotely. Real world example, we have a client that's been a client for about 20 years. They have 3 locations. Now, mind you, we're in San Diego. They don't have a location in San Diego. They're in Los Angeles, San Jose, and Phoenix. And in the 20 years that they've been a client, between all 3 locations, we've probably been on site maybe 10 times between all 3. That's it. But if you use good equipment, you set it up right, you properly maintain it, then there really isn't much of a reason to go on site. And they shouldn't be selling you all the time either, right? They shouldn't be saying all the time like, hey, there's this new widget, you need to buy this, this is cool. They should be keeping an eye out for security advancements. As an example, something that's in the works or kind of new rather is using artificial intelligence as a replacement for antivirus and like a next gen antivirus. So they should be keeping an eye on that, and when it's appropriate, you know, be talking to you about that and saying, hey, here's some stuff we can do to improve the security, keep you guys safer. They should also be staying obviously current on technology and as appropriate, implementing that for you guys. So letting you know, hey, there is this next gen antivirus. We should take a look at it. Some of them will also just eat the cost and roll it out themselves because it's that important. Next slide, please.
Anthony, while we wait for the next slide, I'd just like
Yes.
to remind everybody that on the left-hand side of your view, inside of the application, you'll see Ask the Presenter, select Sunset Staff Track, and then you can ask a question at any time.
Thank you. So one of the things I did mention was about the dark web, right? Even some of my passwords are out there. Dropbox got attacked at one time, and so that password's out there. And once your password's out on the dark web, that's it. It's there forever. There's no way to remove it. So one of the things we're doing for all of the TDO people is if you'd like, send me your email address. My contact information will be on the next slide, or just put in the chat your email address, and I'll run a dark web scan for you and see if any of your passwords show up on the internet, show up on the dark web. The next slide, please. So there's my contact info. Feel free, any questions about best practices, IT security, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Same with the dark web scan, happy to do that for you. I just need to know your email address or domain name and shoot it over to me. I can run that and I'll send you the report. And now I'd like to open it up to any questions.
There's no questions so far. Again, for everybody watching, if you go to the left-hand side, Ask the Presenter, and then go to Staff Sunset Track and just type in your questions. I have a question though, Anthony, while
Yes.
we're waiting. So I have grandchildren that come over every so often, and they bring their laptops and everything, and I'm working remotely for Senendo. And so I'm through a VPN firewall, but they're doing their stuff. Am I at risk, or should we set up something separate for them?
Good question. So when are you using a work computer, a company assigned computer, or using your personal computer?
I'm using a company assigned computer.
Okay, so company assigned computer, you should be fine because it should be fully patched with all the latest Windows updates, latest version of Chrome, etc. Right? It should have really good antivirus on it. It should be locked down, and then you've got your corporate VPN. So that should basically then isolate you when you're doing work for the business, that nobody in your home environment can get to your laptop. Same kind of thing like if you're out and about at Starbucks or something like that, or even McDonald's has got Wi-Fi now, right? You can connect to their Wi-Fi and keep working. Now, one little tip there is when you are connecting to a third-party Wi-Fi like a Starbucks, McDonald's, whoever, airport, turn on your VPN. That way everything goes through the VPN tunnel, and basically you don't become the victim of what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. So as an example of that, another device that's available on the internet is these guys. This is called a Wi-Fi Pineapple, and you put antennas on it. This is a bigger version of it. And basically on one side, it emulates being Starbucks. The other side really connects to Starbucks. And then what happens is your computer is closer to me, my bad guy here. So your computer goes, oh, that's Starbucks and it's a stronger signal. I'm going to talk to this one. And so then whatever you're doing goes through here, and I can see it and I can see what you're doing. But if you do it through a VPN tunnel, then it all is encrypted. So granted, it's going through me, but it's all just gobbledygook.
And what about when you bring up a great point when you're traveling and there's those charging stations all over the place that offer you free charging? I read some stuff a couple of years ago about that. Is that still an issue, plugging
Yes.
into those free charging stations with your phones?
Yep. That's actually one of the training videos that we did about on our cybersecurity training of here's the latest scam. So those free charging stations, right?
Mhm.
Well, what has happened is hackers have put in their own USB cable there, which they can buy for about $100. And when you plug in your phone, yes, it's charging your phone, but it's pulling data off of your phone also and saving it for the hackers. So ways around that: one, bring a battery pack with you, right? Bring your own USB cable to plug into. So a lot of airports now, you'll see an electrical outlet with a USB port there, no cable, just a USB port to plug into.
Right.
You use your own cable, you're safe. There's also a company that has come out with a little adapter where it's a data blocker. So you basically take that USB cable, plug it in this little adapter, then plug that into your phone, and it'll block any data transmissions and only allow your phone to charge.
Excellent. What about portable USB hard drives that you have at the practice? You download your data, but they just sit there. Should somebody take them home every night so you have an off-site, backup? And what are the security risks with taking that type of a hard drive to your home, or if you accidentally leave it in the car and the car is stolen?
Yep. So that's basically like the old tape idea where you'd have backup tapes and you would rotate them, right? It's much easier now with the USB drive, but because cloud backups are so cheap to do these days, that idea has basically gone away.
Okay.
Pretty much, it's not worth your time and effort to sit there, plug in a USB drive, run a backup, and then make sure you take it home. Now, if you do that still, you want to keep doing that, make sure that USB drive is encrypted. There's stuff built into Windows 10 called BitLocker. You can use that to encrypt the drive, because if something does happen and it's in your car and it gets stolen, right, then you got to notify patients. If it double check with your state laws, but if it's encrypted, then generally you don't have to. So
we have a question coming in.
Yes.
Many people offer online payments for their patients. Any thoughts on data security regarding the encryption of sensitive data like credit card numbers?
Yep. The more you can do where you don't have to touch credit card numbers and it goes through somebody else, that takes all that PCI compliance type stuff and responsibility off of your plate. If you are storing credit card numbers, right, you're saving them, you're getting them, then you fall under having to be PCI compliant. It's basically a credit card company regulation of what you got to do. Most people, though, they're using a third party, a merchant to process those. So the credit card number would go into the merchant's website, the credit card processing company, not your website. So then you'd be okay, and you don't have to worry about the PCI compliance, and you don't have to worry about any encryption because they're going to be handling all that.
Excellent. Again, I'd like to remind everybody that you can ask questions through Ask the Presenter on the left-hand side, and we are currently in the staff sunset track. Well, this has been great information so far. So what are your thoughts on going all virtual? So, or in, so
like 100% cloud.
100% cloud-based with all your software solutions?
So mixed. I'm very much a believer in having the right tool for the job, right? And I like tools. So I got all kinds of stuff. That said, it's going to be a while before really everything is. One day I could see everything being 100% cloud, but I think we're still a ways off from that. Most environments are a hybrid. Pretty much everybody's hybrid right now, whether you realize it or not, because some things like, I'd say TDO, that's on premise. Your Word, your Excel files, your CBCT, that's on premise, right? QuickBooks could be either one. It could be on premise or it could be in the cloud. Your email, that's already in the cloud, right? If you're doing any kind of VoIP phone system, that's in the cloud. Cloud is great, but the cloud's not perfect. So it's still susceptible to problems. Microsoft Office 365 had an outage 2 days ago and a day before that. So for a little bit of time, email just stopped working. Also, what most people don't know is that with a cloud environment, you are still responsible when it comes to things like security and backing up your data and making sure everything is set up right. So say like a Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS, they will supply the infrastructure, but you do all the work still. You got to make sure your server's patched. You got to make sure that firewalls are set up right. You have to monitor the firewalls. You have to make sure all the backups are taken care of. You're responsible still for protecting your data. They'll make sure the physical servers stay turned on and up and running, right? But that's about it. You still have to do everything else.
Excellent, excellent. And when you talk about the ransomware, and can you go into a little bit more about that and
Sure.
some of the insurances that you can purchase to cover that?
Yeah. So ransomware is $1 billion industry, literally. So it's not going to be going away. There's just too much money to be made, and it's too easy. Especially with ransomware as a service now, where anybody can go to basically this service and say, hey, I need a ransomware virus. Thank you. And then just go distribute it. In order to protect yourself, it's physical security. So good firewalls, right? Good antivirus, stuff like that. It's more so training your people, because that generally is one of the first things. For the two most common ways you get infected with ransomware is either A, you've got remote desktop open to the internet, which you should never have, or you trick an employee to do something, like you send them an email and you trick them into clicking on something. Those are the most common. So to deal with the second one, tricking the employee, train them, teach them, here are the latest scams, teach them, here's what to look for in an email, right? And it's okay, follow your gut. If you think something's suspicious, reach out to your IT company and double check it. Better safe than sorry. To get out of ransomware, like if you have been hit, because a quote I got from FBI was, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And basically, to get out of ransomware, assuming they have not taken a copy of your data to basically force you to pay the ransom, or they'll release it to the internet, you should have good backups, both a full backup locally that is isolated and firewalled off so stuff can't get into it, and a full backup in the cloud. So even if the ransomware gets past those firewalls and compromises your local backup, that you still have one that is in the cloud, right, that you can restore from. Now, at that point, if you do get ransomware, first thing is basically get a hold of your IT company right away. Generally speaking, by this point, it's not really going to be worth trying to unplug a bunch of stuff, turn things off, because it's probably already done its damage. If you see that window, that pop-up saying, hey, you've been encrypted with ransomware, here's a Bitcoin address to send money to, or contact us at this email address and we'll negotiate a price, well, that means it's already too late. Still doesn't hurt. Go ahead. You can absolutely unplug things, turn computers off, and you'll be fine. But at that point, get your IT company involved. And if you have cyber insurance, notify your insurance provider. Insurance provider will then, depending on the degree, how severe it is, they can bring in a forensics firm. Should be bringing in attorneys also. And the forensics firm should go through the attorneys, so that way, whatever the forensics team identifies in their report that they release is protected by attorney-client privilege. And then the law firm, if necessary, will help you put together a letter to send out to patients if data might have been compromised. But also and that's where the forensics will come into play, and the forensics team will be able to identify, yes, data got leaked out to the internet, or no, it didn't. So.
Excellent, excellent. We got about 10 minutes left, and Kim has a question. Great information. Back to the question about data storage. We do data backup at the end of each night. Admin staff will bring that small USB drive home at the end of the night. We do a full backup and leave it on site weekly, putting it into a fire safe lockbox at the office. We do cloud backup. What should we eliminate, if anything?
If you do, I would probably eliminate the part where you're taking it off site. There's more exposure there, especially because most likely that drive is not encrypted. And if somebody were to get their hands on it, that could be bad. You already have the cloud backups, that should be covering that, and that should take care of it for you. The local backups, you're doing that once a week, putting it into a fireproof safe, that's great. Kind of what you want to ask yourself is, how much work do you want to redo? So hypothetical, let's say Monday, or let's say you do your full backups on Friday. Okay, great. And then it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and all of a sudden Wednesday your server dies. Well, whatever x-rays you've taken, whatever invoices you've created or payments you've gotten for Monday and Tuesday and part of Wednesday, that's gone, right? Now, if you're doing a full backup to the cloud also, perfect. You can restore from there, and that way you have the least amount of data entry to do to get things back to normal or back to where they were.
Two more questions. Does your company service New Jersey, and does your company offer cyber insurance?
We do not offer cyber insurance. Contact your agent about that. Yes, we support New Jersey. One other note on the cyber insurance, there are IT, this is a change that's gone on in the IT world where, because cybersecurity insurance is so important, that companies that sell cybersecurity insurance have popped up and basically allow us to resell it. Now, I don't know, I've only looked into it a little bit. I'm still a believer that really you should be getting it from either a company that specializes in cybersecurity insurance, or like a Hartford or Farmers, where there's somebody reputable and they're going to stand behind it, because this is still in development. Rates are still changing. Like ours just went up dramatically from last year to this year for cybersecurity insurance, because insurance companies are realizing, oh, this is a bigger issue than we originally thought. There's a lot of money that could have to be paid out, right? Mm-hmm. So easy start is just go to whoever you get your general liability from, right? Your malpractice, stuff like that. Talk to them about cybersecurity insurance. Bare minimum, I would say $500,000 policy, but I'd really say it should be at least $1 million.
Excellent. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. Again, just to remind everyone, it's Ask the Presenter on the left-hand side, Staff, Sunset Track. So those are all been great questions and answers. And so just in closing, what would you summarize the current environment in cybersecurity, and what are your feelings moving forward on the technology side?
So there's a thing called Moore's Law that basically came out a long time ago, and it states that technology doubles every 18 months. And it's kept pace with that. And there's all kinds of cool stuff that's come out, right? We've got pretty much self-driving cars, like from Tesla. Mercedes is working on a self-driving semi-truck, right? There's drones. Amazon is either about to release or has just released a tiny little drone that will fly around in your house when you're not there. And if it hears a noise, will go to that location and let you know. So that way you can see if like maybe somebody's breaking in, right? This is all great stuff. And some of these home things, it's called the Internet of Things, right? You got your Nest thermostat, your Ring doorbell, all this cool stuff you can do. You can take your light switches, you can put those on an app on your phone, but it's more for hackers to go after also. We talked about ransomware, that's a big one. Smart TVs, right? From your TV, you can surf Netflix or stream Netflix and YouTube. Well, some hackers have gone after TVs and encrypted with ransomware. And if you want your TV back, you're going to have to pay me. Mm-hmm. So it's all just, no matter how much good comes up, somebody will find a way to use it for bad. It's just the world we live in. But there's a lot of cool stuff out there. long-term, it'll just stay like it is. We'll get new cool things that we can do that improves our quality of life, but somebody's going to find a way to use it for bad.
Excellent. Very good. Cool. Well, I'd like to start closing the session. And thank you very much for coming today and giving us great information on cybersecurity. Again, if you have any questions, the form will stay open for a little while longer, so you can post the forms. And then Anthony's contact information is also, we could put that slide back up again. And then you can contact him directly if you have any questions. We're going to take a break from 10 to 10:30, and then at 10:30, we're going to have the dental assistant roundtable, which is going to be really great. There's Anthony's information, and I'd like to thank everybody. Any further closing words, Anthony?
No, thank you, Chris. And it's great being here. Just bummer wasn't in person, but next year back in person, I hope. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you at 10:30.
Thanks.